Hey, what's up, everyone? And thank you so much for dropping into another episode of the Path to Freedom podcast. This is episode 123. Today, my guest is Danielle Correia, and Danielle is the founder and CEO of Sugaring LA, which is a very exciting new franchise concept in the beauty space. If you're like me and we're not familiar with what sugaring is essentially an alternative to waxing for hair removal. So Sugaring LA is the first sugaring franchise on the scene. And I think the timing is really good for a concept like this. Everyone's familiar with waxing. It's, been a go-to hair removal option for many, many years. In the franchise space, there's a lot of very established waxing concepts, and, they tend to be really solid business opportunities. And so sugaring is, really a faster, more effective option than waxing. But what a lot of their customers really like about it too is that it's all natural, it's organic, there's no chemicals. So it's actually much healthier for your skin. Everyone's skin, as Danielle shares in this episode, responds differently to hair removal. But with sugaring, there tends to be a lot less irritation of the skin, and just an overall better experience for the customers. So Sugaring LA is coming onto the scene as really kind of the first established brand in this sugaring space. Danielle shares with us that she has 20 plus years of experience sugaring. So I think one of the big attractions to, franchisees or prospective franchisees with this brand is that she's got a very dialed in training process, and there is apparently a learning curve to, the as they call them in their business, the sugarist, really learning the proper way to apply this sugaring. So interesting concept, some clear differentiators in the marketplace. From a business model standpoint, it's, a minimal employee model. They're looking for only about 1,000 square foot location, maybe a little bit bigger than that, but still, smaller than the vast majority of other brick and mortar franchise concepts out there. And because of the way the sugaring product itself works, there's minimal waste. This is recurring revenue. Customers are going to keep coming back. They've got some membership options that they're planning to roll out. So a lot of other kind of key characteristics of the business model that I know a lot of people are looking for in a franchise. So really cool concept. I learned a lot. Danielle's clearly an expert. I mean, I had no idea how much science, was actually involved in hair removal and doing it the right way. So really interesting episode. Enjoyed a lot speaking with Danielle and learning from her. So without further ado, let's drop in with Danielle Correia of Sugaring LA. Danielle, thank you so much for dropping in here on the Path to Freedom podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Wes.
So for anyone in the audience that's a bit of a Neanderthal like myself and is maybe not familiar with the concept of sugaring, give us kind of a quick explanation. What is sugaring?
Yeah. So sugaring, we use a ball of lemon, sugar, and water, and we warm it up and remove body hair with it. So it's basically an all-natural, organic method of removing body hair from anywhere on the body.
So would you say this is an alternative to waxing?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the best alternative of hair removal that you could find. It's because it's made of just lemon, sugar, and water. There's no chemicals. It doesn't stick to live skin cells. It actually like gently exfoliates the dead skin cells and then just removes the hair with that. So it's really gentle. It's good for your skin. There's so many benefits to it. I could like dive in right now if you wanted me to.
Well, let's definitely get into some of that, because I think most people, if they're not already familiar with sugaring, they are familiar with waxing. But from what I've learned, there are some distinct differences and advantages to sugaring over waxing.
Yeah.
How did you get into this in the first place?
Yeah. So, gosh, 2005, I was looking for organic, skin friendly products. I had so many skin issues. Just with, they don't teach you how to take care of your skin growing up, right? You don't learn it in
Yeah.
school. You don't understand, like, why is my skin itchy? You need to hydrate, right? But
Mhm.
you're only given a razor, right? Growing up. And some people get razor burn and they can't shave every day. And so I was like, what are the solutions out there? There has to be a better way. So I went to beauty school in my early 20s and learned sugaring. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Why isn't everyone doing it?
Right.
And yeah, so I took a class outside of school. Someone came in and did a demo, and I loved it. And I was in school, so I was able to practice on all the girls at school. And I see us practicing waxing at school with this like hot wax pot with these like sticks we're dipping in,
Yeah.
and this cotton pellin, and it's like you can burn people with it, wax, you can lift skin. There's so much waste. You can only go over the area once or twice. And I was like, oh my gosh, this sugaring is amazing. It's literally a ball of caramel. You dip a gloved hand into the jar, you grab one ball, you mold it on against the hair growth. So it's basically the opposite of waxing. So as we're molding the sugar paste on, it seeps into the hair follicle, wraps around the hair. And then when we go to flick, it pulls it in the natural direction. So it's the opposite of waxing. So it doesn't
Okay.
deform the hair follicle, doesn't break the hair, it doesn't stick to live skin. And then we reuse that same ball over and over and over on that area. So it's like there's zero waste. It's super gentle. And I was like, okay, this is great. I love it. And when I graduated school, I moved to Charleston, South Carolina. And it was kind of just a random move because I am from San Diego, California. And I opened up a little place there called Suite 185. Gosh, on the corner of like King Street, and can't even remember the other street. It was so long ago, but it did great. I was the only sugaring person. It's in the South. Everybody's like, it's so cute, it's sugaring. And
Yeah.
it did really well. And it was just me. And after 2 years, I was ready to move back to San Diego, and I sold my business for like 50 grand, and at like a 20-year-old, you're like, this is amazing. So I moved back to San Diego, and then I moved up to LA in Santa Monica. And this is when like Yelp was getting started, right?
Okay.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
so I just started sugaring a little bit out of my apartment, playing beach volleyball, just living the life. And I got so busy. I was having like people lined up at like 7 o'clock in the morning, every 20 minutes outside my apartment for like
At your
3 hours
apartment?
at my apartment.
That's
And I would
awesome.
like take people in little, 20-minute segments and just do Brazilians. And then I'd, go about my errands, and then I'd have a lunchtime crowd, and then I'd have an evening time crowd. And it was great. And I just got so busy word of mouth. And with Yelp, I ended up getting a space around the corner on Montana Avenue. And it was really just organic. I was really busy. I was making good money. And I got so busy. I was like, I'm doing 20 people a day. I had to hire somebody. So I didn't grow up with a business background. And I learned a lot as I went through this process. So
Sure. Yeah.
I would hire one person, and then they'd get really busy, and then I'd hire another person, and then I'd hire another one. And then we all got so busy, we moved into a larger space. And then, people were like, please come open one over here. Like, please come open one over here. Cause people would travel to come see us. And so then I opened one in Manhattan Beach,
Mm-hmm.
and then we opened one in Carlsbad. My mom actually went to esthetician school, and I taught her the trade, and she opened our Carlsbad studio for
Okay.
me. I lived in LA.
Awesome.
It was really cool. And then we did West Hollywood, and then the last one we opened 2020 was in Beverly Hills. So it's
Okay.
been about every 2 years, just real organic growth. We maybe put 5%, if that, into marketing ever, because it was such a word of mouth business. One girl who worked over at Google would come in, and then like the whole team would come in on their lunch breaks, and
That's a beautiful thing when you don't have to, have a huge marketing budget.
yeah, it was fantastic. And it's funny because there's still so many people who do not know what sugaring is, right? And we're in LA, and they're like, what's sugaring, right? Where it's like, oh my gosh, everyone should be doing this. And once someone sugars, like, they will never wax again. And then they're like, why isn't everyone doing this? And the reason is it's a skilled technique. And a lot of the people who do sugaring, they're just busy on their own, and they work in the back of a salon, and they're happy. And training and teaching is a whole nother thing to sugaring, to get
Mm-hmm.
people good at it. And that's something, over the years, I've just perfected after doing this for 20 years now. And, we've created like our smart sugaring technique that is very different from the way other people teach or perform sugaring. I don't like to like give the secret sauce away, right? But
Sure.
it's all about like the texture of the paste you're using is going to be comfortable for the client or not, right? It's going to remove the hair a certain way, depending on the texture, depending on what hair type, the technique, the angle you're holding your hand, the motion you're flicking, it all matters. It's like an art of hair removal. And we really want to set the standard for what sugaring should be like, because a lot of people go and get sugared somewhere and they're like, oh, it was painful. I had sugar everywhere, pulled my skin, right? And you're like, because
So it
that's
just
what
wasn't being done
name
properly in those
wasn't done
instances.
properly. Exactly.
And I
And it
imagine
can
that's
be
I was gonna say that's a huge value proposition for the franchise, right? Is, you kind of perfecting this method over 20 years that, you will now be able to teach to your franchisees and or their employees, which
yeah.
which is always, one of the biggest things that attract people to good franchise businesses, right? Is if you can help with that learning curve, and
Oh yeah.
if there is some sort of a secret sauce there, right?
Yeah.
That's always attractive.
It's key to sugaring. And
Yeah.
people, will go somewhere else, or they'll travel and be like, there's no sugaring LA, but I found this place. It was terrible. Or this place was cheaper, but oh my gosh, they didn't do this. They didn't do that. It hurt. It took 45 minutes. They bruised me. And then they come back. So there's definitely differentiators between us and other sugaring places. I just really feel like quality control has always been number one for me. We also educate our clients. It's not just like, oh, you're going to come in and you're going to go out, because that's not going to give them the results they want long term. It's all about educating our clients on why we're removing every 4 weeks, the different stages of hair growth, how important it is to hydrate and exfoliate their skin. That's how we prevent ingrown hairs, why ingrown hairs happen. We have a product line. We've got about 8-9 products. That's great for everybody. They're all organic, they're gentle, they're antiseptic, anti-inflammatory, with minimal ingredients. So it's, for one, there's no other company that has their own product line that's organic that goes with it. We don't have 6 product lines for, you have dry skin, you have oily skin. Like, no, our products work on everybody. It just depends on, if you're trying to hydrate a little bit more, if you're trying to, exfoliate a little bit more, or if you have ingrown hairs. or if you're preventing them, great. So we really tried to make it simple, effective, and affordable because we want people to be able to use the products on their skin and not have to break the bank for that. They shouldn't have to do that.
Sure. So it sounds like from a competitive landscape standpoint, the sugaring industry is very, very fragmented at this point where, most of the other sugaring options out there are going to be smaller, kind of independent. Whereas, it seems to me that Sugaring LA is really kind of on the forefront of, becoming the first kind of national brand that's bringing some, some level of sophistication to the industry.
I say we're like the dry bar of sugaring.
Yeah. I think that's a really good comparison.
Yeah. And there's a lot of other places that sugar, a lot of them do other services. So they're not just doing sugaring, and being a single service, that's all we do all day. So we're really good at it. And if you're waxing and sugaring, you're terrible at sugaring, because you would never offer waxing to people if you were good at sugaring. It makes a big difference. And we also service men and women, and most companies don't cater towards men. It's more female centric. Their branding, they don't necessarily train their estheticians on how to work with male clients, because we do service all body parts, right? So that's a big part of our brand, is making sure that we're inclusive, we serve everybody, and we're organic and sustainable, using non-toxic products.
What would you say the breakdown of clients is across your corporate locations, percentage wise, female to male?
I would say we have about 15 to 30% male clients, just depending on what area. West Hollywood, maybe a little bit more.
Yeah, that's interesting. There's a waxing concept that I've worked with a little bit in the past, and I remember them telling us at one point that about 30% of their customer base were men, which was kind of surprising to me, but I think it's important for, people to understand if they're looking at, something like Sugaring LA from a business opportunity standpoint. It's not just for women. There's plenty of men that are interested in these services as well.
Especially with sugaring, men tend to have thicker, just more hair in general. And wax, you basically get to go get it once. And with sugaring, it's so effective because we can take this sugar paste and just mold on and off until we're able to really get rid of all the hair. So they don't have the little short hairs. They don't have hair breaking off. It's not lifting their skin. So it's much more gentle. I mean, it's much more gentle for everybody. It's safe for eczema, psoriasis. It's really hard to hurt someone, but having these differentiators, is definitely appealing to men.
Yeah. Well, I'll embarrass myself here for a minute, because I've got some hair on my back, right? And it drives my wife crazy. So initially it started out with like her getting one of the at-home wax kits and trying to take it off herself, which she thought was good fun. Watching me like squirm or whatever, but that never really did a very good job. And so, then I've gone a few times. I haven't done it regularly, but to an actual waxing place for my back, but it really aggravated the skin on my back, where I think you mentioned earlier, like raising the skin. I mean, I would have like bumps for days afterwards. And it was a very uncomfortable, it wasn't even so much painful, but just like the skin was irritated and itchy, and it just like, for me, it wasn't worth it. I was like, I'd rather just,
because you're trying to have smooth, nice looking skin.
Sure.
And so for some people, we want to minimize irritation, right? And when you're pulling your hair out by the root, the first few times, there's like this big bulb and it has to pop through the skin, right? So that's why a lot of the time you get the little blood dots. But if you're pulling the hair with sugar in the natural direction instead of tearing it backwards, much more calming to the skin. Very, very minimal blood, if any, right? And this is for, the thick hair on the chest or on the back. Sometimes people get a little irritation the first time, maybe 20% the second time, because any hair being pulled out from the root the very first time typically on a men's chest, if they're irritation prone, they'll get a little bit of it. But we also have a nice calming mud mask treatment that we apply after, which totally calms the skin and helps minimize that. So, that is the thing with men, sometimes on the chest, sometimes on the back, and you just don't know, but we're always educating our clients. And if it does happen, it's probably just going to be the first time and it's going to be pretty minimal. So, it's one of the things with hair removal, everybody's skin's just a little bit different.
Yeah, it makes total sense.
Some are totally fine and some aren't, but sugaring for people, we used to get a lot of people, well, we still do, but when I was actually sugaring, who had horrible waxing experiences, horrible laser, they were like mentally scarred. And then they look for something that's like alternative, gentler. And so they come in like really nervous and scared and anticipating something, horrible. And they're like, oh my gosh, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't as painful. And like, I'm so happy I found this. And for me, I loved that. We could do Brazilians all day, but when you get somebody who has like hirsutism and actually has like hair conditions where their face is like growing almost like a beard, like a man, and you're able to sugar that for them, and they can't shave because they get razor burn, laser's not working, waxing away on that face with that type of hair, and they're just like crying like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, and it's life-changing for some people. And I love that. Like, it's just always been such a rewarding thing for me, is to be able to help people. And I really feel like people who want to see a change in the industry 50% of consumers are now looking for organic products to put in their skin. And we're just going in that direction. And I think a lot of people understand that and want to promote that as well. And then also help people in that process. So it is a great little niche for that.
Yeah. Yeah. You made a comment earlier that I thought was really interesting. You said, most, if not everyone that tries sugaring never goes back to waxing, and so I think that speaks volumes in terms of just the benefits of the sugaring approach. I'm curious, is there much of a difference in terms of frequency, between waxing compared to sugaring? Is it still about the same frequency that someone would need to come in?
Yeah. So with sugaring, we're able to pull hair as short as a 16th of an inch. So your very first time you come in, we want your hair a little bit longer. So we're able to really grip it well, because it's still like pretty strong. But after that first treatment, anywhere from 3 to 5, 6 weeks, depending on your hair growth, right? Everybody's a little bit different. It's typically always 4 weeks, but some people just want their hair gone all the time. So they can come in really frequently, because we can pull really short hair, and waxing cannot do that. And when you're pulling hair really short, you're getting it in the anagen stage, meaning it's still connected at the root. And as your hair starts to grow, another hair starts to push underneath, and that hair we're removing is detached. And the way that you get your follicle wall to collapse and close is having no hair sitting in that follicle. So if you're doing it real frequently in the beginning, you're going to get long-term permanent results and really refine and reduce that hair. So you do actually get a lot better hair refinement with sugaring than you would with waxing.
It's fat. I would have never imagined there's so much science behind removing hair. Like, it's interesting. And you're clearly know your stuff. To me, it was just you're ripping hair out and then it comes back and you rip it out again. But there's some real science to this. It's
There
fascinating.
is. Yes.
If you're listening to this podcast, then there's a good chance that you're looking to create more freedom in your own life. There's also a good chance that you realize that owning your own business can be a great way to take more control of your livelihood and create more of that freedom that we're all looking for. Also, if you've been listening to the show for a while, you realize that I specialize in franchise ownership. In addition to owning franchise businesses myself, I have a franchise consulting firm, Path to Freedom, where I help people navigate what is typically an overwhelming process of understanding franchising, identifying specific franchise companies that could be a fit, and then conducting the due diligence in a thorough and efficient manner with those franchise brands. My whole purpose here is to leverage my experience working for franchisors, owning franchises myself, and how we've been able to use that to create more freedom in our lives and help you determine if that could be a path that makes sense for you as well. So if any of this sounds interesting, if you've considered business ownership in the past, whether you've explored franchising specifically or not, I'd love to connect with you. I'd love to learn more about you and what it is that you're working towards in your life and determine if I may be in a position to help. A great starting point is the link below in the show notes, which will take you to a short form to fill out, and you'll receive a free copy of an ebook that I've put together, The 7 Steps to Freedom Through Franchise Ownership. That'll also get us connected, and I'd love to set up an introductory call where I can explain a little bit more about the process that I use to help people determine if franchise ownership could be a great way to start charting their own path to freedom. So click the link below in the show notes, receive the ebook, and let's get connected. I'd love to hear from you.
Definitely.
So when did you get to the point where, you really realized that you were on to something and, you wanted to franchise the business and
Yeah.
expand beyond Southern California?
Yeah. I would say it was really effortless for me in a sense to start these businesses and to get clients, and the product really works for itself. And before COVID, we rebranded and we were planning on a big expansion. And then all that happened. We were shut down for like 11 months in LA. It was very difficult. Also, HR, right? Having all the employees. I was like, this is a lot. And I've always mentored other sugaring friends who have sugaring places, one in Hawaii, one in New York. And they're always calling me like, Danielle, how do I get through this? What are you doing for this? What are you doing for that? And I love that part. Like,
Yeah.
I'm really good at it. I'm a problem solver and I love helping others and giving them advice. So when we were coming back from 2020, I had to hire, I went from 50 employees down to 6 and had to hire about, 35, 40 to get back to where we are. And that was during where people didn't want to work. They weren't working. You're having differences in the workplace, right? It was really hard, but we did it. And it kind of proved to me like, dang, like I can do this, if I just like anything I do, I put 110% in. So I'm always like what I'm going to put my energy into, because then I got to maintenance it. Right.
Yeah.
But if I can share that with others and help them and guide them and problem solve, if they have good business acumen, I think they'll be really successful. So I decided to franchise, I think 2021, and we kind of started small doing it. And we're going through the process. And then we met Franworth. And I was like, gosh, they're amazing. I love doing what I'm really good at. And I have my, COO and director of ops and really good at what they do. Right. And we all come together and it makes something wonderful. And I love that about North, that everybody at the company is really good at what they do.
Yeah.
And then they all come together. And I was like, gosh, this is great. They've worked in beauty. They have Lash Lounge. I like the team. I really want Sugaring LA to be everywhere, because I want people to be able to get sugared everywhere they go. And they don't right now. We have people who come in from New York once a month and they're like, I'm getting my sugaring appointment, and even if they do have sugaring there, it's not Sugaring LA. And our clients are very loyal to the brand, not just the sugarist or the service, right? They love Sugaring LA. So for me, I was like, we're going to do great. And if we launch it and put it out there and we get the right franchisees, I'm super excited for it. I get like these little itches where I'll be like driving through a neighborhood, right now in like Del Mar, and I'm like, oh, I see this empty space for rent, and it's
perfect
right next to this, and I want to do it, but I'm at a point where I'm like, no, I'm going to like help franchisees. And, I've been doing this for 15 years. So I'm ready for the transition of helping others and growing Sugaring LA, all over the nation. So
that was something I picked up on earlier when you were talking about how much you enjoy helping others and kind of coaching others. Because I think that's something that a lot of times founders of companies, and they decide to start franchising, they don't necessarily fully understand like how their role is going to need to change, from going to kind of like an operator of, locations in your local area to really being that, visionary, but also, the one that's really mentoring and coaching these other franchisees. So I think the fact that you really enjoy that and excel at it is good. And then, the other thing I would point out is you mentioned Franworth, which, has a lot of experience in franchising and partnering and investing with brands. I always tell candidates that I'm coaching, if you can find an emerging concept that, like yourself, has a founder that's an absolute, expert or leader in the industry, there's so many benefits that come with, emerging concepts, right? Prime territory availability, just, an opportunity to get in early on something. There's going to be so many more expansion opportunities down the road. But if combined with that, the founder of this emerging brand was smart enough to partner with some people that have really deep franchise experience, that's the best of both worlds, right? Because
priceless.
It really is, because a lot of emerging brands, if the founder doesn't, have this franchise experience yet, there's mistakes that are going to happen, right? As the system grows and scales, it's very different.
Well, the support. The lack of support, because
that's
they don't
usually where the breakdown is.
Support you. And the training, with having Franworth and Rep'em, because, we're working with Rep'em now, and, they have build them, scale them. You're going to get onboarded. You're going to have your real estate and construction. We have our supply chain and fulfillment from, coming from Liberty Fulfillment in Ann Arbor. We have our education and training. We have all of our platforms. We have our marketing operations. I mean, for me, having it so streamlined for franchisees, it's like a no-brainer. Like, I wish I had that, I had none of that, and I was as successful as I was, or am, I guess. But I'm excited for them. I think it's going to be awesome. And, I've always been a risk taker in my life. I don't let fear get in the way. I'm like, I feel it. Yes, it's going to work. So I feel like I'll be able to help a lot of people maybe transitioning from that corporate, job security, financial, paycheck every 2 weeks kind of thing, to really getting out there and saying like, yes, I can, right? Like, I can have my own business. I can do this and it's going to be successful. And you don't doubt it, because if you start to doubt it, then you're just going to put bad thoughts around it and energy around it. So, being involved in your communities and being, builders of whatever you're doing is going to be the same thing when you're going to open your own business and, really bringing your team together. And I'm excited for them.
Yeah. It's the partnership that you have with Franworth and Repham, I think goes a long way to, reduce a lot of the risk that would typically be there, with emerging brands that are just getting started. And then again, combine that with your industry expertise and just everything you've learned about the sugaring business and how to teach it to other people. It really is, a recipe for success. So let's talk a little bit about, the business model itself, right? So this is obviously a, kind of brick and mortar storefront type business, right? Customers are coming into a Sugaring LA location for these services. So how big of a location is going to be ideal for one of these?
Ideally, 1,000 to 1,300 square feet. We're looking at 4 to 6 rooms. A question that comes up is my studios are 2 and 3 rooms, right? And they're like, well, why are we going 4 to 6? I wish I had 4, 5, 6 rooms. In the beginning, you're going to want, well, for when I'm in LA, right? We're in prime, rent per
more
square
expensive.
foot. I had to make it work for what I was able to do. Plus, you have to figure out what kind of square footage is most available in your areas, right? It's going to vary, and there's not a lot of smaller footprints that are going to be able to work with what the kind of build out you need. But, we don't have a break room, and we need one. It's really important to have that space in the back. I wish I had a training room, right? Because when I'm training, if I'm doing advanced trainings, I don't want to have to block out a room that could be making money. Right. We want to be able to have that extra room for training. Maybe if somebody wants to add on a service and we didn't have them booked in, great. So-and-so is available and can do it in this room because I already have appointments. So having that flexibility, especially on weekends, all 3 rooms are booked. So I can't grow. My numbers, they're here, and I have no room to go here with them.
Right.
So that's kind of why we did the model to 4 to 6 rooms, and it's still a small footprint of 1,000 to 1,300 square feet.
Yeah, that's fantastic, right? I mean, there's not many brick and mortar concepts that I work with that are under 2,000 square feet that's needed. So that's really great.
Yes, I agree. And then we have it'll be 6 to 8 sugarists, 3 to 4 to start. Our team right now, we're open 8 to 8. Some of our locations, 7 days a week. On the weekends, it's 9 to 5, or I'm sorry, it's 8 to 4. So that is going to vary for everybody. And we don't want to overwork our staff, right? 8 hours of sugaring. It's like a pitcher going out and pitching 8-hour games every day, right?
Arms gonna get tired.
Arms get tired. So we do 5.5-hour shifts, and our weekend shifts are 8 hours. But so we break it up, and we have 2 estheticians using 1 treatment room a day for 5.5 hours each. So we found that works best so people don't get burnt out. We always have coverage if somebody calls in sick, right? You always have these little variables that you want to be able to work with. And then we have a front manager at the studio. So we do have a sugarist help out a little bit with checking out clients, answer the phones in those hours that maybe our manager is not there. They are there 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And, as you grow or build, you can have, more front desk staff if you need to, but you always want to make sure everybody is keeping busy, right? So there's always work for someone to do.
So with the sugarist, I know you talked a little bit already about, that this is pretty specialized, right? And takes some training, for them to really know what they're doing and do it the right way. Are you looking, are franchisees going to be looking for, sugarists that have some experience already, or are you guys able to kind of train them? Do they need to be like licensed estheticians already? Like, what are kind of the requirements for the sugarists?
So they do need to be licensed estheticians or cosmetologists.
Okay.
And we do get a lot of both. I would say because it's hair removal and it's chatty and you're engaging with clients, we do get a lot of cosmetologists as well. And we are open to people coming to us with sugaring experience as long as they are open and willing to transition to the Sugaring LA smart sugaring technique, right? Because we want our clientele to be able to go with any sugarist and have the same quality of service, right? And just the change of a hand direction makes your sugaring experience different and can make it more painful, can make the hair not come out as well, right? So anyone will go through our training program who is a new hire if they came from sugaring experience. We love hiring right out of beauty school as well. I think that, they're lacking a little bit in obviously working with clients in a treatment room and, we could teach them more that bedside manner, but they're still in that learning mode of like, I want to learn new things and I can pick up this technique pretty quickly because I'm not, too set in any one direction or habit.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, we're really, I started this because I love creating jobs and, my studios, we offer healthcare to our staff. We give them PTO. I always wanted to create a workplace that I would want to work at.
Yeah.
And that's how it was created. Like, okay, this is how I like it. So I'm going to roll this over to them. And these girls with this skill can go anywhere in the world and get a job and be able to support themselves. I always tell people like, we're going to teach you this amazing skill and everybody wants growth. I understand that. And if you get to a point where you're feeling burnt out and you don't have growth or you want to do your own thing, just be honest, right? Let's talk about it. And you don't solicit to our clients, go do the hard work. And if you want to start your own thing, you build it from scratch like we did.
Yeah.
And as long as, you just keep that open communication and really treat your staff as you would want to be treated, I think you'll go a long way.
I think that's a great philosophy and a great way to look at it. I think, doing the right thing by your employees and really putting them in a position where they feel valued and they feel like, they have growth potential, and then just good open communication. It's the right way to do it, right? Because you won't have as much turnover. You'll have good loyal employees. So couldn't agree more. I'm curious with the franchise owners, and I realize you guys are still fairly early into this, but are you looking for franchise owners that are going to be working in the locations themselves? Is this more of what I always refer to as an executive model where the owner's not necessarily in the location, they're more kind of big picture focused? What is kind of the role of the owner meant to be?
We definitely, if they want to be semi-absentee owner operator, we're okay with that. I think, making sure they're choosing the right manager who's going to lead the studio, if they're going to be more absentee than not is very important. Hiring employees that represent the brand and, just embracing our ideals of community and authenticity of what we represent and making sure that the staff represents that as well. Being involved in the community so they're able to network. It's always important. obviously have like good business acumen and be able to, you know, track key performance indicators. Just really representing the brand in the community on a daily basis, I
Yeah.
think is important. You know, it's, for me, it's always, I think for the first few years when people would talk to me about franchising, I was so like, no one's going to do it like me, right? Like there,
Yeah.
you know, what happens if, you know, it's not going to be exactly, but that's okay, right? We're all different, and
Yeah.
it can be a little bit different, but as long as they like harness the brand essence of the foundation of sugaring, which they will learn in the training and with everything that encompasses it, I think it's going to be great.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be I think that's always one of the hardest parts of scaling a business, whether you're doing it through franchising or just, you know, building out your team and learning
Yeah.
to delegate. I know in the businesses my wife and I own, that's especially for my wife always been one of the hardest things, right? Is
Yes.
giving up a little bit of control and just getting comfortable
Yes.
with the fact that, hey, someone may not do it exactly the way I would, but that's okay, as long as, like you
Yeah.
said, the general you know, essence is still kind of there. So
Yes. And I've learned to like, I think COVID taught me how to give up control. Because you know, you just had none with what was happening, and like you
yeah.
couldn't operate. And I was like, you know what? Like, I'm just gonna focus on the things I'm really good at. And it's helping others like be successful, and, you know, and keep in mind going. And so it's interesting always, right? What's born out of those hardships.
Yeah, it absolutely is. So from a business model standpoint, is this a membership based where, you know, customers are just paying a monthly fee and that gets them,
Yeah.
you know, a certain number of sessions, or what does that kind of look like?
So right now we have a somewhat of a membership model.
Mhm.
And it's basically you get 15% off when you rebook your service the day of for your next service.
Okay.
And that could be any service. And we've always done that. Our new client special is I think 2 for 69 for Brazilian. So it's kind of buy one, get one free. Your first service is always going to be the most uncomfortable. For one, they're nervous. Two, you know, you're working in the nether regions. If they've never had their hair removed, it's just like, you know, intimate and private, and it can be painful. And then the second one is like
Yeah.
a million times better. So they know they have a free service to come back, and they do. And they're like, oh my gosh, this was so much better.
And
And then
that's
they're
what kind of
like,
hooks them in.
they're hooked.
Yeah.
Yeah. And but we are very excited because we did actually just create a membership model that is a little bit more streamlined. So we will have a membership for Brazilian and legs, for a manzillion and shoulders. And then we will have some packages where it's buy 3 or buy 6, and, you know, you get 10% off or 20% off, as well as giving discounts on our products and additional services. So our membership model, which is our most, we do mainly Brazilians, or a form of it, right? A bikini or extended. So that'll be $65 per month. And you'll get one per month. And then they will get 20% off additional services and 20% off products, because we
Okay.
really want them to use the products. And people love adding on services. A lot of people get their underarms or their belly or their upper lips. So we're excited. We're actually rolling that out May 15th in the LA studios. So
Yeah, that's exciting. So for those listening, you know, this is all I think very important, you know, when you're looking at, you know, kind of the business model and the opportunity here. So you've got, you know, recurring revenue, right? This is the type
yep.
of service where people are going to be coming back for it, right? You've got the membership component. You've got multiple revenue streams, right? Because like you said, the Brazilian is, you know, maybe what brings most people in, but then you've got, you know, these kind of additional services that people can opt in for.
Yep.
And then the other thing I love here is the product line, right? So how big of a component is the product, and are these, I'm assuming this is not like product where they would buy the sugar and take it
No,
home to do it themselves.
no.
This is just other skincare products.
Correct. Yeah. We do have a at-home sugaring kit that was born during COVID when people couldn't come and get services. But we don't teach the hand technique. They have reusable sticks, reusable strips that are biodegradable, or like a little card thing that they can remove the hair themselves with. But it's really good for just touch up, or like a couple bikini hair stragglers, or your underarms. Not giving yourself a Brazilian. It is not easy.
Yeah.
So we do have that as an option, but our product line is mainly every single person should be moisturizing and exfoliating their skin. I mean, whether you're doing hair removal or not, right? It's just like you want to slough off those dead skin cells, because as we get older, they build up and we don't get them off, right?
I'm laughing because I never do any of that. I'm so bad at that.
Right? I get it, right? So the sugar technique does exfoliate the dead skin cells. And then when you're done with your treatment, we usually put some nice light rose oil on and we hydrate the skin. But in between your services, you need to be removing those dead skin cells, because if they start to build up and you are dry, your hair follicle starts to get tight. So now you have dead skin cells that are built up. You have a dry, tight follicle, and you have a hair that's coming in really thin and fine that cannot break through the surface of the skin. That is why some people get ingrown hairs, right? So if you're exfoliating them off and you're lubricating that follicle, your hair glides through and you have nice, beautiful, soft skin. So it's all about educating each client so they understand that. And we want them to be using organic, gentle, non-chemical products on their skin, especially on their lady parts, or man parts.
Sure.
So that is a big thing for us is most clients walk away with 2 products their very first visit because they need them.
Yeah, it's mind-blowing to me how many, not even just skincare, but like shampoo and body wash and deodorant and just all of this stuff out there on the market, leading brands are filled with chemicals and just non-natural crap. And like my wife and I started paying much more attention to this when we started having kids, right?
Yes.
And it's very, very difficult for most consumers to even really understand like what's okay and what's not because of the marketing that some of these companies are allowed to get away with.
Yes. Even the word, like natural foods, they've like ruined that word for everybody because they still lie and put chemicals in. And, just like we use cornstarch for our powder to help soak up any moisture on the skin. Some people are still using baby powder, when there's literally like lawsuits that have like Johnson Johnson lost because it was giving people cancer, down there. It's like, so really being product conscious, and we really educate our clients about products and why we don't put certain chemicals on our skin, what certain chemicals are, like what are parabens. These are all like crappy fillers for products for huge, conglomerate companies to just fill products and sell them, and we don't do that. That is literally like all of our products are made here in LA at an amazing facility. And, they were even handmade before that. So we've evolved to now having a company making them, and they source the highest quality ingredients, and they're testing the rose petals that come in for any pesticide. So it's
That's
really
awesome.
neat.
Yeah. When it sounds like another big attraction to this from a business model standpoint, I would imagine this has a positive impact on the margin potential, right? But is the fact that there's so little waste with this. And again, if you compare that to waxing, where it sounds like there is a lot more waste, I'm sure that has a negative impact on your margins if you're in the waxing business.
It's incredible. I mean, for us, you can do 1 tub of sugar, is around $20, $25, and it can make you $1,200. It's incredible. We have no sticks. We have gloves. And before COVID, we had biodegradable gloves. But then when gloves were like not possible to get,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
we're
It's
like,
like
okay,
gloves and
okay,
toilet paper. You couldn't get it.
yeah. So we're going to have to we're just going to have to deal with the gloves not being biodegradable. And then you have to recycle them a certain way. And there's just a lot to it at the time as well. So I am so proud that we have very, very, very minimal waste. I think it's amazing. And there's no reason to there's no double dipping. There's no bunch of sticks and throwing them out. There's no waste of all this cotton. And the only cotton we do sell is in our sugaring kits, and you can wash it and reuse it because sugar dissolves with water. So after a sugaring treatment, when you're all done, we have a warm towel cabinet, and then we put the warm towel on and any sugar residue comes right off. So you're never going to leave sticky, because I know that's a huge complaint for people who get waxed.
Yeah. Well, this is all fascinating. And like I told you earlier, I never imagined there was so much science that goes into this, but it's very clear to me that you're an expert when it comes to sugaring. And I'm excited that Sugaring LA is now an opportunity that aspiring entrepreneurs can look into. And, I'm sure it's only a matter of time before Sugaring LA is all over the country.
Yes, can't wait. And I'm excited to be able to work with, the first ones coming in, because, that's what I love to do. And getting to meet them and see their spaces and helping them just be successful.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be a fun ride. I have no doubt that things are going to get very, very busy for you here shortly. But Danielle, really appreciate you making time. Where can people connect with you? Where can people learn more about Sugaring LA, whether that's social media, websites? Where's the best place for people to connect with you and Sugaring LA?
Yep. Our website is www.sugaringla.com, and there we have all of our handles and Instagram. We definitely are active on Instagram. We have a beautiful Instagram. And my email, you can email me directly. It's Danielle, Danielle at sugaringla.com.
Okay.
So yeah, you can email us at Sugaring LA. You can email me. All the links are there.
We'll put all the links in the show notes to make it easy for people to find. But again, really appreciate you dropping in here on the podcast. I'm excited to help you guys get some exposure. I think it's a really interesting concept, and it's going to be a great opportunity for a lot of people.
Awesome. Thank you, Wes.
You're very welcome. My pleasure.